The scent of industrial cleaner hung in the air, a sharp, citrusy contrast to the opulent mahogany and polished brass of the Sterling Corporation executive floor. Leo, his calloused hands still damp from wiping down the restroom mirrors, pushed his custodial cart quietly past a wall of glass overlooking the city. Inside the main conference room, a storm was brewing. He could see his 7-year-old daughter, Chloe, sitting on a plush leather chair, swinging her legs and coloring diligently. She was supposed to be at her after-school program, but it had closed early for a pipe burst. With no other options, Leo had brought her to work, promising his supervisor she'd be invisible. They had been invisible until the door hissed open and Alexander Sterling, the Billionaire CEO, strode in with his entourage for an impromptu meeting. Sterling, a man whose arrogance was as tailored as his Seville row suit, stopped dead at the sight of Chloe. "What is this?" he sneered, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of the air conditioning. "A janitor's brat drawing on my $30,000 conference table? This isn't a daycare." Leo moved quickly, stepping into the room and placing a protective hand on Chloe's shoulder. "I'm sorry, sir. There was an emergency at her program. She's not bothering anyone." Sterling's eyes, cold and flinty, swept over Leo's faded blue uniform. "You think the rules don't apply to you? That you can drag your domestic problems into my boardroom? Get your grubby child and your mop bucket out of my sight. You're lucky I don't fire you on the spot for this insubordination." The other executives shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. The insult, janitor's brat, hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Chloe's lower lip trembled. It was the tremor in her lip that did it. The carefully constructed wall of patience Leo had built over years of anonymity began to crack. A cold fire ignited in his eyes. "Apologize to my daughter," Leo said, his voice low but clear, devoid of its usual deferential tone. Sterling barked a laugh. "Apologize? To you? You're nothing. You're a ghost who wipes floors. Now get out before I call security." As Leo turned to guide Chloe out, the sleeve of his uniform jacket, snagged on the handle of his cart, rode up his forearm. There, stark against his skin, was a tattoo. It wasn't a random design. It was an intricate, interlocking series of symbols and letters. Vanguard, encircled by a spear and a laurel wreath. One of the older VPs, a man named Mr. Davison who had been with the company since its early, turbulent days, gasped. His face lost all its color. He'd only seen that symbol once before, in a framed article in the corporate archives. "Wait!" Davison croaked, his voice strangled. He took a step closer, his eyes fixed on Leo's arm. "That tattoo. Vanguard Security Consulting." Sterling rolled his eyes. "What are you babbling about, Davison? The man has a cheap tattoo." "No, sir," Davison whispered, his gaze locked with Leo's. Leo stood straighter, his shoulders squaring. The meek janitor was gone, replaced by a figure of unnerving stillness and authority. Vanguard wasn't a consulting firm. That was the cover. They were the most elite, most secretive private military and corporate intelligence unit ever assembled. They operated in the shadows. They saved this company. Sterling froze. "What are you talking about?" "The hostile takeover in '08. Davison continued, his voice gaining strength with the memory. "Blackwater Capital. They had us cornered. Our stock was plummeting. Our servers were under a cyber siege, and our board was ready to surrender. Then a man came, just one man. He called himself Leonidas. In 1 week, he uncovered the blackmail Blackwater was using, neutralized their cyber attack at the source, and provided your father with the leverage to not only survive but to acquire Blackwater's key assets. He saved Sterling Corporation. Your father tried to pay him a king's ransom. He refused. He said he was settling a debt. He just disappeared." All eyes were on Leo's forearm and then on his face. The pieces clicked into place. The quiet intensity, the way he carried himself, the eyes that had seen too much. "Leonidas," Davison breathed. Leo gave a barely perceptible nod. He gently pulled his sleeve back down. "The debt was to your father, Alexander," Leo said, his voice now carrying a gravelly weight that commanded the room. He gave my unit sanctuary during an operation that went bad overseas. He never asked questions. I repaid that debt. He looked at Sterling, his expression unreadable. I took this job because it was quiet, anonymous. After a lifetime of noise, I just wanted to be a good father, to raise my daughter in peace. He glanced down at Chloe, who was now holding his hand tightly, looking at her dad with wide, confused eyes. You can insult me, but you will never insult my child. Sterling was speechless, his face a mask of stunned disbelief. The man he'd just called nothing was a living legend, the very reason he was a billionaire standing in that room. Leo didn't wait for a response. He looked at Mr. Davison. My resignation. Effective immediately. He then knelt down, his voice softening into a gentle whisper only for Chloe. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go get some ice cream. As Leo led his daughter out, leaving a silent, shocked conference room in his wake, he didn't look back. The janitor was gone. But as the heavy glass door swung shut, Alexander Sterling felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. He wasn't just looking at a former hero. He was looking at a man who held the secret to his company's most vulnerable moment, and he had just made him an enemy. The next morning, a single, unmarked envelope arrived on Sterling's desk. Inside was a data stick. When he plugged it in, he found not corporate secrets, but a copy of his own father's will with a specific, previously unknown clause. And to the man known as Leonidas, I bequeath not money, but my eternal gratitude and a single promise, that Sterling Corporation will always be a place of refuge and respect for him and his. There was no threat, no blackmail. Just a quiet, devastating reminder of the man his father had been, and the man Alexander had failed to be. The billionaire CEO stared at the screen, the ghost of a janitor's tattoo burning in his mind, and for the first time in his life, Alexander Sterling felt truly, utterly poor.